Okay, good to go. Have a good session.
Okay, thanks. So welcome to the first session of the second day of the conference. And in this session, we have 3 papers on message authentication calls and pseudorandom functions. And this session has 3 papers, and each speaker will give a 5-minute summary, and you can post your questions on the Julep. So please use a Julep to post your questions. Now the first talk will be given by Andrew, and the title of this paper is on the adaptive security of Macs and PRFs.
Okay, let me share my screen. Is this working?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So thank you for the introduction. And in this talk, I will present recent work done in conjunction with Raphael Pass and Elaine Shi, which establishes a negative result for efficient reductions from the security of message authentication codes and pseudorandom functions to standard assumptions. Message authentication codes, or MACs, are, as most of us should know, a secret key primitive which allows for secure authentication or tagging of messages in such a way that an adversary without the key is unable to forge a valid tag for a chosen message. Pseudorandom functions, or PRFs, are keyed families of functions which, somewhat similarly to the tagging algorithm of a MAC, are required to look random to an adversary without knowledge of the key. These primitives are ubiquitous and used in settings such as authenticated key exchange with millions of active users, so we'd like to consider a notion of adaptive multi-user security where an adversary can interact with many instances and even look up the keys to most of them, so long as they break an instance whose key they haven't seen yet. We'd also like to look at the level of concrete security we get from a reduction from these primitives. This can be expressed in terms of the security loss, or the ratio between the expected time needed by the adversary to break the primitive and the reduction to break the assumption the primitive is built on. To guarantee good concrete security for the primitive from a certain level of security for the assumption, we would like the two to be relatively close, or say within a factor bounded by some fixed polynomial in the security parameter. We call such a reduction linear preserving. The most straightforward reductions from multi-key security of MACs or PRFs involve reducing to single key security of the same primitive by a reduction that just simply embeds a single key instance in a random one of the multi-key instances. This can easily be shown to lose a factor of L of n, which we'll call the number of keys or users. And this in turn means it isn't linear preserving in a world where the number of keys or users can be unbounded. So the question we ask in this work is, can we do better than that and have a reduction whose security loss is independent of this number of users? In fact, there are some known positive results already. Bellari et al. Constructed a PRF with a linear preserving reduction in the random oracle model, while Botter et al. Constructed a MAC with a linear preserving reduction in the plain model, albeit one that introduces randomness into the tagging algorithm. But the question has remained open for the case of either PRFs or deterministic and stateless MACs in the plain model. And that part of the question is what we will answer in the negative in this work. Specifically, we show that if there exists a linear preserving black box reduction from adaptive multi-user security of either a deterministic and stateless MAC or a PRF to any standard assumption C with an a priori bounded number of rounds, then the assumption C is inherently insecure. In fact, we show this for not just reductions whose security loss is independent of the number of users L of n, but also any reduction whose security loss is asymptotically better than the square root of L of n. That said, the gap between that and the trivial reductions loss of L of n remains open as far as we know, so whether a bound is tight is an interesting open question. The key practical takeaway from a result is that if we want the most efficient reductions possible, and thus the best provable security guarantees for adaptive multi-user security of MACs, we need to make sacrifices in terms of the efficiency of the MAC itself by introducing some sort of randomness, as with Botter et al.'s construction, or some sort of internal state, as with constructions like GMAC. So in the rest of the time I have, I'll go over how we prove our theorem at a high level. We rely on the meta-reduction paradigm originally proposed by Bonnet and Venkatesan in 1998 to prove our theorem. And this will start by describing an ideal adversary A that breaks the multi-user security of a MAC with probability very close to 1, but does so in essentially exponential time. It'll make many tag queries to every instance of the MAC, open the keys to all but a random instance to verify that the tag queries for those instances were answered correctly, and finally brute force a key that agrees with the tag queries for the target instance and use that to produce a forgery. Then, if for the sake of contradiction, we assume a linear preserving reduction R, which breaks our assumption C when given an adversary against the MAC, we describe a meta-reduction B that internally emulates the interaction between R and A, and show that B will suffice to break C in polynomial time. Specifically, B deals with the brute force step of A by instead trying to rewind the key opening queries and extract a valid key from the reduction R itself. While this isn't guaranteed to succeed, we show that it can be done in polynomial time with only a minimal loss to the probability with which B breaks C compared to the original reduction R. So the primary novelty of our meta-reduction stems from the fact that responses to a polynomial number of tag queries don't necessarily specify a unique key. So in theory, there could be multiple different keys or forgeries corresponding to R's responses to A's or B's tag queries. For technical reasons, all prior meta-reductions of similar form to ours required a unique correspondence between the query responses and the adversary's final output. In contrast, we can deal with this issue and show that this key uniqueness isn't necessary in two steps. First, we prove a key uniqueness lemma, which essentially states that given a random set of tagging queries, the probability of the event of there being multiple keys which agree on those queries but might produce different forgeries from the adversary is relatively small. And second, to deal with complex rewinding related issues, we actually introduce a hybrid inefficient meta-reduction, which is identical to B, but makes a deterministic key choice via brute force to bypass the key uniqueness issues above entirely. And this actually allows us to separate out the rewinding issues and key uniqueness related issues in our proof into different phases of a hybrid argument to prove our final result. Given 5 minutes, this is all the detail I'm able to go into, but of course we encourage interested viewers to watch the full version of the talk or read our paper for a more thorough analysis of our meta-reduction and the techniques I've highlighted here. And with that, I will conclude and thank you for attending the talk.
Thank you very much for the great talk. Thank you. We don't have a question posted on Zulip, so let me ask one question.
Okay.
So I wonder the situation of keyed sponge. It's a MAC, a deterministic and stateless MAC, but it uses a public random permutation when we analyze its security. So it's a sponge construction, and well, it's stateless and deterministic, but I wonder if this is covered in your impossibility result.
That is an interesting question. I would have to look into it more for the technical details, but I believe our result covers any MAC in the plane model, so not relying on a random oracle or something for a proof of security, that doesn't store internal state and doesn't use randomness in the tagging algorithm. So if there's randomness in the tagging algorithm, then it does bypass our impossibility.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, thank you. And
I have a question. So
okay.
Yeah, from my side. Actually, can we expect a kind of positive result if we relax the conditions such as adaptiveness or security loss?
So if we relax adaptive multi-user security, then that would bypass the impossibility. Our impossibility does in particular rely on it being adaptive multi-user. So we need the stronger version of security to build our meta-reduction.
Okay, thank you. We don't still see the questions on the Zulip, so let me ask one more question. I wondered what happens for deterministic authenticated encryption. So usually authenticated encryption takes nonce or random number as the input, but in the deterministic authenticated encryption, there is no nonce or IV. So it could be seen as a MAC where the tag length depends on the message length. In a sense, I think it could be seen as a stateless deterministic MAC, and I wonder how do you expect the situation for deterministic authenticated encryptions?
I would expect it to be somewhat similar to the situation for deterministic MACs. Actually, I believe there's a related impossibility result that does deal with authenticated encryption and uses a meta reduction.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I think it's about time. So thank you for the talk, and we will move to the next talk.
Okay. So yeah, so we move to the next talk. Youngmin will give a talk, and the title is Improved Security Analysis for Non-Spaced Enhanced Hash-10 Mask Max.
Hello, can you see the slide? I'll start.
Yes. Yes.
Hello, my name is Youngmin Lee. I'm going to talk about the improved security analysis for non-spaced enhanced hash-10 mask max. This is joint work with Won-Seok Choi, Byung-Hwan Lee, and my advisor Young Lee. Let's start with the introduction. As everyone knows, MAC is a symmetric key algorithm generating a tag for assuring authenticity of a message. And I call non-spaced MAC if the MAC receives an unique value nonce with the message. MAC should have unpauseability to be secure. If a MAC has unpauseability, it's infeasible to generate a new valid message and tag pairs. I'll briefly introduce well-known non-spaced MAC constructions. Perhaps the most famous construction is Wegman-Carter MAC. Wegman-Carter MAC enjoys full security as long as nonce are not repeated. Later, Victor Should replaced the random function into a random permutation, which leads to degrade the security to the birthday bound. Encrypted Wegman-Carter soup is secure up to the birthday bound in both nonce respecting and nonce miss setting by encrypting the output value of Wegman-Carter soup. EWCDM and DWCDM achieves beyond the birthday bound security by small modification to encrypted Wegman-Carter soup. However, security in nonce miss setting remains to birthday bound. Ideally, security should degrade gracefully according to the number of repeated nodes. So, new nonce-based MAC was proposed with which enjoy graceful degradation. Nonce-based enhanced hash-10 mask MAC, namely NHTM, is the construction in this slide. It was proposed by Dutta et al. In Eurocrypt 2019. NHTM seems to have similar security bound to EWCDM or DWCDM, but actually have better security since it achieves graceful degradation in the nonce misuse model. When we consider graceful degradation, we denote mu as a number of repeated nonce, which are also called as faulty nonces. In this paper, we proved the improved security of NHTM. The graph shows the threshold number of authentication queries and verification queries according to the number of faulty nonces. Here, black line is previous security bound, and red line is new security bound of NHTM. As you can see here, our new bound improved the security of NHTM for any number of faulty nonces less than 2 to the n over 2. Let's introduce the brief overview of our security proof. At first, we replaced the block cipher EK by a random permutation pi. Next, we assume that the hash key KH is revealed to the adversary at the end of the interaction. So the adversary can calculate the intermediate value X. Then, after that, we use the expectation method. We will not cover this precisely, but the important point is to define a proper set of bad transcript and then find out the probability having bad transcript. To find out the probability of a transcript in the real world, we construct a system of equations and count the number of solutions of the system. As you can see here, the output of pi can be viewed as unknowns, and each query generates an equation of 2 unknowns. Through this process, one can find out the corresponding system of equations and non-equations from a transcript. To easily represent the system, we visualize the system by a transcript graph G. The figure shows an example of transcript graph which represents 2 authentication queries and 2 verification queries. The next step is to define the bad transcript. Sum of transcript graph might lead to a contradiction when one of the 3 conditions holds. Now let's find the detailed bad events. Bad 1 holds if either bad 1A or bad 1B holds. bed1A is the event which have length 2 cycle, and bed1B is the event which have one direction of length 4 trails. Since our graph is always bipartite, all cycles should have even length, and G is always a cyclic without bed1. Bed2 and bed3 can be defined similarly. To sum up, without bed1, bed2, and bed3, the graph does not have contradiction, and the probability having a bad transcript is very small, as you can see in the inequality. What is left is to analyze good transcript by applying mirror theory. For a good transcript, one can observe that the partial graph G equal consists of 3 groups of components. And we figure out that the number of components in G3 is much smaller than those in G2, and the number of components in G2 is much smaller than those in G1. So to get a sharp estimation of epsilon ratio, we try to make a specialized mirror theory that uses the previous observation, and here is our result. And we could find sufficiently sharp estimation of epsilon ratio. Finally, after applying the expectation method, we get the security bound of NHTM. Thank you for listening, and if you have any question, please let me know.
Okay, thank you very much for your talk. If you have questions, please post your questions on Zulip, because I don't see many questions. Okay, let me ask a question. So you have proved a new security bound, and can you comment on the tightness of your security bound? Do you have a matching attack, or how do you say about your the tightness of your security bound?
We proved the 2 to the 3n/4 security, but there is no attack on this bound. So I think the tight bound can be improved, can be up to 2 to the n security, but I couldn't the bound us prove.
Oh, so your expectation is that you can further improve the security bound, and there will be no matching attack with to the 3n/4.
Yes.
Okay. And do you have questions? I don't see them on Zulip. On Zoom, no. So I wonder if we try to prove better security bound than the current one. I guess we need some requirements in the mirror theory, right?
Yeah.
And well, what is the biggest challenge here? What is the most difficult thing to further improve the mirror theory in order to prove better security bound?
Mirror theory, as looking at a graph, if you have a large component graph, it is difficult to analyze the number of solutions for the large components. So we solve this problem by using the number of the large components is small, but it is not enough to prove 2 to the n security. So we needed to solve this problem.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. No, we don't have a question. Do you have questions from the audience? Okay, maybe we can move to the next talk. Thank you for your talk.
Yes. So we will move to the last talk of this session. And Benoit will give a talk, and the title is How to Build Optimally Secure PRFs Using Block Ciphers. Benoit?
Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about how to build optimally secure PRFs from block ciphers. And well, the classical way of doing so would be to use the hash then PRF paradigm. So for that, you need a good hash function and some finalization function that is based on a fixed input length PRF. And such a composition will be secure as long as there is no hash collision, which means that if you want n-bit security, we need a 2n-bit hash output. And then we need a 2n-bit to n-bit PRF in the finalization step. So let's first have a look at what candidate we can use for the finalization step. And it appears that the best candidate that we have is the modified Beness transformation. So this transformation uses 4 random functions or 4 random permutations to build a secure contracting 2n-bit to n-bit PRF. And we already know some security bounds. So MBNS, when used with 4 functions, is secure as long as the number of queries is small in front of 2 to the n 1 minus epsilon. And when used with independent random permutations, it's secure as long as q is small in front of 2 to the 3n divided by 4. So both bounds are beyond birthday bound, but they are not optimal. So we cannot really use the classical hash then PRF composition to build an optimally secure variable input length PRF. So maybe we can improve the bound to optimal security, but it appears that there is a non-trivial bottleneck in the proof of optimal security. So this is why we introduced the hash then modified Beness paradigm. We simply add a hash preprocessing layer before applying the MBNS construction. This way, we reduce the ability of the adversary to choose the collision pattern in the input of the MBNS construction. And so we actually introduce 3 variants of HTMB. The first is the F variant that uses 4 random functions. The second one is the P1 variant, which uses 2 independent permutations in the inner MBNS layer. And in the outer layer, the random functions are replaced by a XOR of 2 random permutations. And finally, we have the P2 construction, which uses 4 random permutations. In the proof, the use of the hash preprocessing layer helps us avoid the previous bottleneck that is present in the case of MBNS. And we were actually able to show that the constructions are secure as long as the number of queries is small in front of 2 to the n, and the pair H1H2 satisfies some universality property. And what's interesting to note is that the F and P1 variant, for the F and P1 variant, we have a direct security proof, but for the P2 variant, we had to rely on mirror theory. Now let's have a quick look at our 2 instantiations of HTME, well, our 2 families of instantiations. The first is MPMAC+, and it is based on the hash function of the PMAC plus PRF. So let's first have a look at PMAC+. So in order to compute the output of PMAC+, you first have to compute some masks to XOR them with the message blocks. Then there is an encryption step using some permutation P0. Then 2 linear combinations of the ciphertext are computed. Both are encrypted under independent random permutations. The outputs are XORed to get the final value. This construction is secure as long as the number of queries is small in front of 2 to the 3n divided by 4, which is tight. And so in our MPMAC+ construction, we simply replace the finalization step by the MBNS construction. So here I've put the P2 variant, but it works with all the 3 of them. And we were able to prove security as long as the number of queried blocks sigma is small in front of 2 to the n. What's also quite nice is that we were able to remove the final the final P0 call for the last message block, which means that we only use one more block cipher call when compared with PMAC+. And our second family is mLightMac+, and it uses the light hash functions from LightMac+. So it's essentially very similar to the phash hash function. The only difference is that what we encrypt is actually the concatenation of a counter and a message block. And for this variant, we show that all three instances are secure as long as the number of queries is small in front of 2 to the n. And here it's the number of queries and not the number of queries blocked, which is nice. We also have some variants with reduced number of keys, but since I'm running out of time, let's skip that and thank you for your attention. I would be happy to answer any question if you have one.
Okay, thank you very much for the talk. So do you have questions from the audience? Don't see in the slip. So maybe I have some questions. So you proposed 3 variants: F variant, P1 variant, and P2 variant.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you compare P1 variant and P2 variant? I mean, what is the point of P1?
Yeah, so the point of P1 is to have a construction that is more efficient than the F variant. That we can prove the direct security of, because P2 we have to rely on mirror theory and on the quite controversial results of mirror theory with the NXCmax variant, and well, there is no complete proof of the results, so we wanted to have the P1 variant, which we could show the security of without any doubt.
Okay, I see. Thank you. Do we have questions?
I also have a question. So actually, your construction makes 4 block cipher calls after hashing the message. So do you think you can reduce the number of block cipher calls in the finalization function? So for example, by using 3-round 5-star structure or something like that.
I'm not sure we could using 3-round 5-star. Maybe it's possible by using the hash preprocessing layer. Maybe we can still prove optimal security. Yeah, it may be possible. We would have to look into this, but it may be possible, but it will require more significant proof than what we had to do for the P1 and P2 variants, I guess.
I see. Thanks.
Thank you. I have one final short question. I looked into the paper and I saw that with MPMAC+, the length of the query has to be limited to 2 to the n over 2.
Yes.
And I understand that you need the maximum length for mLightMac+, but I'm not sure if you really need the maximum length limitation in MPMAC+. Do you need this assumption, or I mean, do you have an attack with 2 to the n over 2 length inputs, or this is just something you need to prove the security?
Okay, we don't have an attack for this case. It's something that we need for the security proof. It's just for the when we compute the masks, we have a 2 to the power 2L multiplication, and we just needed to avoid that the powers of 2 would wrap around and would go beyond 2 to the n minus 1. But we don't have an attack for this case, so maybe the proof could be improved to any query length. I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. So I don't see more questions, so I think we close this session.